Because of the amount of interest, I am going to move up, with your permission, of course, I'm going to move up the presentation on the Ala Wai Boat Harbor. We are not here for a vote on this issue tonight, but I'm sure you will all be interested in what plans the Department of Land and Natural Resource has to compensate for the loss of the former honeybee project and input you received at your first presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lehua, and please do your presentation.
Okay. Aloha Chair Finley, Vice Chair and members of the board and community, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Lehua Kauhane. I'm with a company called DTL. We are a planning, communications, and branding firm here in Honolulu. I am also joined by Dana Yoshimura from the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation. So mahalo for having us. We wanted to come here tonight to share with the board an overview of the community engagement process that we are undertaking for the Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor, and share with you some of the feedback that we've received so far. So I'm sure, as most of you remember, back in 2016, when the state realized that the honeybee development was no longer a viable option, the DOE board decided to really use it as an opportunity to pause, to take a step back, and to go back to the community and sort of hear what the community and the public's vision is for the future of Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. So DTL was brought on by DOE board in early 2017 to help design and implement this process. Sorry. So the purpose of the visioning process that we are engaging in is really to gather community feedback on the future of Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor, for the purpose of assisting DOE board in future planning efforts and also in the development for requests for proposals. I want to emphasize that this is not a master planning activity. It's really the first step in looking forward to what will be at Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. So as you can see here, when we say Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor, what we're really focusing on in this process are the 4 state-owned parcels that surround the waterways and the docks. So we're not talking about the boat slips themselves, but really these 4 main parcels. And as you can see here, it's more than just the honeybee parcel. This is really intentional on DOE board's behalf. Rather than looking at the site in a piecemeal fashion, parcel by parcel, in this first step, they really wanted to take a more comprehensive look at all of their properties there at the site. So DTL, our company, really engages the community through a 4-part mo'o methodology. And I'll just sort of breeze through this pretty quickly. So the first phase is mo'o kuauhau, and this is where we look at the genealogy of a place, going back from antiquity, traditional land uses, traditional land names, mo'olelo or stories that were once a part of the place, kalia in this example. We also move forward all the way through to today. What are the current land uses, allowable land uses, what are applicable regulations and guidelines? So following the gathering of that sort of baseline information on the property, we move into the mo'olelo phase. And this is really where the bulk of details work here begins. And this is the community engagement phase. So this is where we go out to the public, we come to meetings like this, we talk to various stakeholders, sort of get their feedback on their vision for Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. We then, with that information, move forward into mo'oka'i, and this is where sort of the more traditional planning activities take place, where the pen hits the paper. In this case, we will be coming up with 3 conceptual diagrams. Again, they're not a master plan, but they're really just sort of a visual representation of the information we've gathered from the public, the information we know about allowable land uses and regulations, and also some of the priorities from DOE board itself. And then moving forward, mo'o vai, these are the valued practices that are left behind once our company leaves the project. And in this case, it's important for us to really gather that community feedback in a report, to have the visual representations in the diagrams, and to leave those with DOBOR as they make the future planning decisions, as well as design future requests for proposals for the sites. So focusing in on our community engagement process, we really have sort of three core avenues that we're pursuing as part of Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor visioning. We have 2 public meetings. The first was held in July, so I recognize a few people who were at that meeting. So I'll share some highlights from that. We'll be holding also an additional 8 stakeholder meetings, small group meetings. This is one of those stakeholder meetings. And we also have opportunities for online engagement. So at the end of the presentation, I'll be sharing a website with everyone that you can log on to the website. You can see the cultural brief that we have. You can see the public presentations that we've shared. You also have an opportunity to leave comments and questions, as well as respond to some of the discussion questions and activities that we had in the public meeting. So if you weren't able to make it, or you have friends that weren't able to make it, they can go online and contribute there. So our first public meeting was held on July 10th, 2017. And we really call it a public visioning workshop. This isn't designed to be a hearing type of format. We really want it to be a more workshop, working format. So we like people to be in small groups, to be able to meet and talk with other members of the community, to really kind of get to, in this first meeting, to get to sort of pull it out a little bit and get to a higher level view of, okay, what do we want to see as the vision? How do we want to feel when we walk into Ala Wai Boat Harbor? How do we want to, what do we want it to smell like? What do we want to see? What activities do we want to see there? So it's really sort of to get a higher level vision of what people want for the area. We had it at McCoy Pavilion, just right down the road from Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. And we had a really positive turnout. We had about 110 participants join us that night. And the purpose, again, of this first meeting was really just to start to develop a shared vision for Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. So in doing that, we had 2 activities, as well as 2 discussion questions. The first activity was more just sort of an introduction. We asked people to introduce themselves to their table by sharing their favorite memory of Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor. And this was an important first step because we wanted people to start the conversation coming from a positive place. What do they love about it? And we got some pretty good responses, a wide range from it's someplace they enjoy coming on Friday nights, watching the fireworks with their friends, to farther back, that's where their grandfather taught them how to surf in the 50s. So we had a pretty good, it was good to start off with those memories that are important to all of us. The first real activity that we asked people to sort of engage with their tables on together, though, was we asked them to select an image of Kalia, the area that Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor sits. Select an image that resonates with their vision for the harbor. We gave each table about 10 images, a set of 10 images. And each of these images represents some aspect of Kalia and Ala Wai Small Boat Harbors, its history, its culture, its traditional practices. And the reason we did this is because these are elements that we might not see today, but we wanted to see from people what are those elements that are important to them that they might want somehow reflected in the Ala Wai of tomorrow. So you can see there's 4 images that are highlighted here. And about 70% of the attendees chose one of these 4 images. The first 2 images are really representative of the ecosystem that once thrived in Kalia. Kalia was once a healthy reef known for its fishing, for its limu or seaweed gathering. And so although these are 2 different images, people chose different ones, the reason behind them was the same. People wanted to see that health of resources, ecosystems restored back to the harbor in some way. The second 2 images also were related. Another theme came out of that. People really wanted to remember the boating history of the place. And that we can see that today there, the boating, but also going back to traditions of voyaging, the canoe traditions of navigation that still carry through until today. So that was another important element that we saw people show us in this meeting. The first discussion question that we asked people to sort of take on is a fill in the blank, and it was Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor is ... and you fill in the blank. So this was really an opportunity for people to engage with their table. Some of the things, these 4 bullet points here, are just sort of overviews, kind of encapsulating different things that we heard. So one sort of general category is it's lacking in services for harbor users. Many people talked about the lack of a fueling station, a haul-out area or dry dock, and a simple marketplace where people could get ice, drinks, things like that. We also heard a lot of feedback that related to the harbor somehow being unattractive and uninviting. People commented that it was run down, that there was bad smells, pollution in the water. Also, the restrooms have been abused. And then also lack of some type of central gathering space or places where the public can gather. We also heard that unenforcement was an issue. So the people commented on the presence of drugs around the harbor, issues with homeless and illegal parking, people taking up the free public parking stalls. So despite all those things which sound negative, we also did hear that Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor is really a community asset. It's a place for people to come and connect with nature, to surf, to boat, to watch the fireworks, and to spend time with their family and friends. The second question that we fill in the blank that we asked the community to talk about is looking forward. So Ala Wai Boat Harbor should be. And so these again sort of just encapsulate some of the comments that we heard. But one overarching kind of theme was that it should be a world-class marina. Some people called it the gem of Oahu, others even said that it should be the gem of the Pacific. But this is really a highlight and the gem here on Oahu. They also said that there should be boating amenities, such as a place for people to get fuel, to maintain their boats, to get a snack or food or ice. And the next thing we heard was that it should be safe and inviting to locals and visitors. Things like landscaping, greenery, making it more inviting and cool. People talked about having central gathering spaces, places where people could sit on a picnic bench or maybe barbecue with their friends and family in the area. Also places for family and youth activities. Places where the public can come down to the harbor and take their families and take their kids to sort of connect with this ocean and boating heritage. And also multimodal access was a topic that came up. People like the idea of having sort of inviting walkways for people to make their way around the harbor, biking, and then also cars. We heard that parking was important. People wanted to retain places for people to park. Interestingly, education also came up. People commented that Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor should be a place to educate visitors and locals alike, particularly on things like resource management and boating and traditions of this place. And ideas for that were things like in signage or possibly even a visitor center. So these are sort of highlights of that first public visioning workshop. We'll be having another one, but in the meantime, we'll be taking the information that we've gathered, starting to compile it into a report, and sort of pulling out some of the big themes that came up as we kind of work forward towards those conceptual diagrams. So next steps, we're also going to be meeting with additional stakeholders. We'll be having the public workshop. We're aiming for approximately October or November of this year. And then we're also continuing the online engagement. So we encourage all of you to go online, check out what we've been sharing so far. You can sign up. I have your email, and then we can update you as we update the website. So following all of this, our process, DOBAR will be taking this information and utilizing it to help develop a request for proposals for the parcel. So I'll just, before we go to questions, I'll just leave you with the website so you have a chance to write that down. Thank you.
Okay, members of the audience who came for this presentation, if you have questions, please line up over by the microphone on this side. Ask your questions, but we are limiting you to 2 minutes, as is our policy here. And please use the microphone.
So I work for the company DTL. So we were brought DTL. It's spelled DTL actually, but it's pronounced DTL. So we were hired by the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation, specifically for this community engagement process.
Board members, could you hold off until we get our audience members? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Gordon Wood, a resident of Ala Wai Harbor, actually. We attended the...
A little bit louder, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, a little bit closer, I guess. We attended your first visioning workshop. Thank you. I thought that it was a very well-run workshop, and I appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
However, as a community interaction exercise, I think that you should be making better use of your website. For example, I'm only here this evening because somebody happened to drive past my boat today and say, hey, did you know they're having a thing tonight? And I said, no, I had no idea. And so I went to your website, and there's no information on the fact that you're going to be here this evening. And I just thought that was an unfortunate loss of an opportunity to try to engage the community even more through a tool that you already have available out there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and we'll definitely make sure when we're in public venues like this again, I'll make sure to post that on the
Excellent.
website.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Stan
Hi.
Thornton. I'm a past Commodore Waikiki Yacht Club, representing the club. 2 questions. One, do you have any sense of about when the second public visionary meeting will be held?
Yeah, so we're shooting for sometime in October or November. So if you, the last time we had the meeting, it was, we'd sent out a press release the week before, but oftentimes the news doesn't pick it up till maybe the day before. It was also on HPR, and I walked slip to slip for 2 days trying to pass out the flyers to whoever was there, posted it on the bathrooms and things like that. But if you are interested in finding out exactly when the next one is, I would go onto the website, and then I can be sure to add you to the list.
Okay, thank you. Second question, were variances granted to Honeybee for the 2 properties that they had under lease, and are they in effect today?
That question I might have to punt to Dana Yoshimura from Department of Boating and Ocean Recreation. So the question was, did Honeybee get variances, and do they still exist?
Yes, Honeybee did receive various variances.
A little bit louder, please.
Yes, Honeybee did receive variances for the development of the property, but it'll be up to the developer in the due diligence process to verify whether or not those variances will still be in effect. They may or they may not be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Dave Moskowitz from Waikiki.
Hi, how are you?
I loved your slick corporate presentation. It was very nice. I love the Hawaiian stuff, though. I really enjoyed I was at the Macaulay thing, but I really thought you were condescending to the majority of the people there and treated them like children. However, I just wondered if you know if the findings you said were going to be presented that time, which I haven't seen, are not presented so far, and when they might be. Secondly, DTL represents a large corporate development group. They did the marketplace with WCIT architecture, that huge building at Ward. They're really just apologists for developers. And what I have heard is that Howard Hughes Corporation and maybe Jeff Stone and others, a guy named Kevin Schauer, actually it'll be a public-private partnership. And yes, indeed, if you listen to her presentation, they are talking about the entire marina. I mean, you can see right through the BS that was just handed out to us. So, but it was nice to meet you and nice to see your corporate public presentation.
So
if you could answer the question about and do you know about any high-rise developments, and how high will it be when it gets done? Thank you.
Okay. So everyone is allowed to their own opinions. But I do have a question, sir. Sorry, in the findings that you were saying that we were going to share, can you? I'm sorry, I'm just not clear what
What you presented
findings.
was just a few of the things that were said, and the findings that you accumulated as to your presentation back to perhaps DL&R about what you gathered and where you might move forward with the plan you saw. I mean, I wrote down no high-rises, never saw that up there. But, it was very nice and pro-development kind of presentation. But what are your entire in-house findings?
Yeah, so I think it's, with 110 participants and round-robin style, it's hard to get everyone's comments. So we try to take the bulk of the comments and sort of look for themes. We are going to be sharing the full notes, the transcribed notes. As you remember, we recorded those on the white sheets. So all of that will be given to the Department of Boating, or Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation, for them to decide, where they go from there.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to ask if you could please consider including the Ilikai, the neighbor of the Ala Wai Boat Harbor, the Ilikai Hotel. We currently maintain a very long elevated boardwalk along the front of the harbor. It's a public use area where you can see the ocean and activities in the harbor. And I would just like to ask if you could please consider us in one of your stakeholder meetings. I wouldn't want DTL to overlook that asset for the public and block views for the public from the Ilikai Hotel. So I don't know if you have a pin with you, but
Kira's taking notes.
if you could notify our association manager, he's standing behind me, Suite 218 at 1777 Ala Moana Boulevard. We'd really appreciate it.
Did you get
Thank
that?
you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Rob Johnson. I'm the general manager of the association at the Ilikai. I represent 1,061 owners in the building, almost $1 billion worth of investment. And so to hear possible public-private partnerships at the harbor, that's highly concerning. Anytime a private developer gets in the pocket with the state, only the people that use everything lose. It's not very often that that comes out positive. I currently understand that there's 4 major developers that are very active and eager to get their fingers into this project. The only reason that happens is for their profit. Not for the boaters, not for the owners that have invested for over 55 years across the street. And I know not one owner in my whole building has yet come to me in favor of any development at the harbor. I was surprised today to learn that the state sticks $0 into that harbor. Can you confirm that, Dana?
When you refer to the state not...
Do they put any money from the general fund into the harbor?
Yes, they do when it's approved by the legislature.
When's the last time that was done?
I don't recall, sir. I'm not actually the day-to-day and the manager of the harbor. So what I can tell you...
Do you want me to tell you the last time that was done? Yes. When the improvements were done that you see today. That's the last time it was done.
Okay. So what I can tell you is that the harbor operates barely at break-even insofar as day-to-day operations are concerned. And the problem is for funding of the deferred maintenance and improvements. You are correct. the money has not been there.
So
Therefore, the reason to seek revenue from landside opportunities to be able to address that very issue. Thanks.
Thank you. So just to make it clear to everybody, what he said is the state hasn't stuck a penny in since the docks that you see are there right now. They have abandoned the whole harbor. Do you know what percentage of the income that is received from the slip income that actually goes back into that specific harbor?
From what I understand, sir, that income is actually used for the maintenance of the harbor.
Does that go into a special fund that is used throughout the whole state?
That is correct.
And so just to clarify, the gem of Waikiki Yacht Harbor makes the most money of any harbor in the whole state. It is then pillaged by every other harbor in the state that loses money, and now they come to the public and look for private interests to try to save poor management. This is a business. It should be run by like a business. If the state wants to subsidize all the other harbors in the state, feel free to do that. Leave the money that's brought in as income in this particular harbor here. We wouldn't be having this discussion if that was done.
Go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Patricia Wood. I'm also a resident of the harbor and a participant in the neighborhood watch that we have regularly. I also attended the Vision meeting. One thing I saw missing, and I had heard many people echo this, the Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor is a small boat harbor. Not a condo, not a wedding chapel, not a mall, not even a visitor center. It is an active, working, small boat harbor. Right. And I think we lose sight of that. The other thing that was mentioned in the vision, and I communicated this when I wrote my comments. I didn't see any interaction in the website at all. I haven't had a response by our Representative Broward or you people. I gave you my email.
Yeah, so
okay?
it doesn't go to Representative.
I'm just, no,
I'll
I'm
make sure to
saying
respond.
I've communicated on a lot of levels, okay? I hear those parcels as being described as, quote, underutilized. The fuel dock is underutilized now because you closed it. Before it was closed, it was highly utilized. The boat haul out and boatyard was highly utilized when it was open. Of course, it's not utilized, it's been destroyed. That nice big, two of those triangles up in the top, one is permitted parking. Now, we do not have 700 parking spaces for all the 700 boats. There are not that many permitted spots in the harbor. So you're saying that's underutilized. All right, fine. The other big portion, where our harbor office is underutilized. Parking for trailers and small boats. Hawaii 5-0 closes that whole thing at least twice a month for filming. And when the fire department has a rescue and needs to put their emergency boats into the water at the boat yard or the boat ramp, that is also considered underutilized. I don't know how they're going to use that if you build anything on that space. I'm real intense, I apologize, because I feel that we are being railroaded. You are bringing in, you've got it planned, I am assuming. And I know it sounds cynical, but you know, we're not new to this. My husband's raised here. I mean, we've been here a long time. And so I really think it's very easy for you because you collected our emails. Send us all an email. We all have our addresses. We get invoices every single month, DLNR. We get invoices, we get invoices every month. They actually tell us, hey, remember to make sure you have liability insurance. Wouldn't it be nice if they said, oh, and by the way, the next visioning planning meeting is this day? I would think, okay.
I'll try to follow that, both individuals. I only have one comment, no question. I could get, and I'll start with an analogy. I could get a lot of use from like a barbecue area, restaurants, place to hang out, at a golf clubhouse. You know, it can provide a lot of the same similar services for the public to use. But I don't use it because I don't golf. And if we have this partnership between the public and private at a harbor, and I don't own a boat, like a lot of people don't own a boat, I don't see how that's for the majority of the general public's benefit. That's all I have to say to that. Thank you.
No, and thank you. Can I respond to any of those, or? No, I thank you for sharing that, and I think that that's some of the feedback that we heard for those things like families or community gathering spaces. For people that don't necessarily live there, they would also like to see some type of spaces for them as well. I also want to apologize if in the meeting, maybe it was misworded, I'm not sure, but that was definitely not our intent to say the harbor itself is underutilized. You pointed out there are definitely parcels that are underutilized, like the fueling dock and things like that. So we know that that's an issue, and we hear that. I can't speak to what happened before we started, but I can say that we are collecting this and we'll report it back.
Okay.
One quick response to that is that I think we already have those areas and those services for the public because we have excellent parks here. And that I see them every day enjoyed by all, and I think it's at the fraction of the cost to the taxpayer.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up to our board members now. Catherine first, and then I'm going to give it over to Lou.
Hi.
Hi.
When I came to Hawaii in 1975, my first home was on a 36-foot boat in the Ala Wai Harbor. The water was clean. You could swim in it. Could you put the first slide up where you showed the areas you're talking about?
Sorry, we unplugged were you talking about the map?
Well, the areas you're supposedly going to take over.
Well, the 4 parcels that we're looking at in this process.
I'm sorry?
The 4 parcels we're looking at in this process. So I just want to make clear that no decision has been made by DOBOR yet.
Wait. I saw A, B, C, D.
Yes.
Okay?
Correct.
I can understand wanting to revive the area where Honeybee's project went on. Mm-hmm. But Section A, tell me, where is that supposed to be?
So Section A, as it was on the map, is what is kind of referred to as the harbor master site. So it includes that harbor master office as well as the parking on the Diamond Head side.
I see. And so you're trying to develop something in this Section A, which was the largest section that you showed.
So I want to be clear again that we were brought on to gather community's vision for these parcels. And then that's where we leave that information with DOBOR so they can take it as they move forward and consider planning for these areas.
Okay. Well, I object personally as a citizen, as a boat owner. On the plan that you're suggesting, it's ridiculous because This is for boat owners. It is not for development. As far as the Ilikai is concerned, what a joy to sit on the aft deck of your boat and listen to the conch shell being blown and the lights lit and realizing you're in Hawaii. And if you're trying to develop this into something other than a gas dock, a maintenance place for boats, a place for yachts to be sold, I think you're so far wrong, I can't even begin to tell you.
Okay, thank you. I like this is a nice project. I like what you're doing. I mean, what you've done, I mean, in terms of the big picture vision, I mean, you've capsulized it pretty well. The place is smelly and run down, and there's no reason why it can't be a world-class marina, right? So I think in a nutshell, that's pretty much where it is. But I mean, that's nothing that all of us haven't been saying forever. I mean, I've been on this neighborhood board about 14, 15 years. I think that's what everybody says. The place is a dump, and there's no reason why it can't be a first-class place. I'm more interested in the specifics. So is the state truly starting from this point of we have no idea what we're going to do and we're just going out to the community and we really want to get your input? Or do they have some ideas about what they're doing? Have they done any kind of a carrying capacity to see, is there infrastructure? If you decide to build a 300-foot condo versus low-rise shops, is there the infrastructure for it? Is the goal to maximize revenue, or is the goal to kind of create a better environment in the harbor? And even more specifically, I agree with what the gentleman said there. I've long felt that part of the problem is that the money goes into a special fund, but it goes into the boating special fund. It doesn't go into a special fund for the Ala Wai Harbor. So when the gentleman from DLNR says, yeah, it all goes to the Ala Wai, no, I mean, it actually goes to all the harbors. And so essentially, you do have the Ala Wai subsidizing all the other harbors around the state. And that is part of the problem, that in terms of it being under-resourced. And so I think most of us on the board, and probably the people in the community, on the one hand, we don't necessarily want to see overdevelopment in the harbor, but I think everybody agrees the state's done a pretty lousy job of running it the way they have, and you're probably going to have a private entity come in because the state hasn't demonstrated that they're capable of doing it. But if the state were to keep the money in the harbor that it gets from the revenue, they might be able to do that. So I would urge the state to consider those things, and I'd be curious to hear any response that you have.
Yeah, so those are good points. And if I miss anything, please jump in. But from what we know, that the state has not made any decisions yet on whether, if they did put an RFP, if it's going to include all 4 parcels, if it'll just be 1 parcel, if there'll be 2 separate RFPs, or 4 RFPs, similar to what HCDA did at Kewalo. So that decision hasn't been made yet. In terms of, like I said, this is not a master plan, so we will not be taking into consideration things like the financial analysis that would need to be done, due diligence in terms of engineering and infrastructure needed to support particular development. That will not be done by us. The onus of that would be put on whatever potential developers do come forward. Did I miss anything, Dana?
Mr. Mers?
Yeah, Lou, you stole my theme and my thunder. I totally agree with you 100%. I think what we're seeing is a recurring theme in Waikiki, not just with this, but with all kinds of developments. Our neighborhood generates a huge amount of tax revenue or fees or whatever for facilities in Waikiki. The state takes this money, I'm assuming, I don't know particulars of all this, but it seems like I've heard throughout the years that money's generated, not that every dime needs to stay in Waikiki, but we're not getting, for every dollar we pay into fees or facilities, parks or whatever, we're not getting our revenue amount back. And a perfect example is parks or whatever. I think a good place to start would be, and I know this is beyond your Kuleana, and one, I personally want to thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you.
This is a tough crowd, so if you can make it here, you can handle Kailua more than anybody else. But I personally want to thank you because I've been on your side of this desk, so I know how difficult it is. But I just want to reiterate, I think due diligence is going to involve, at a future time, disclosing what those finances are. And sir, you brought up great points. I don't know the answers, but show me how much revenue is generated here, or lack thereof, and then it begs the question, well, how can we make that up? I'm not against public-private partnerships. I don't know what they're proposing yet, and obviously nothing. But let's make sure that we're clear on what's generated here, and I personally sense that it's one of these entities where, once again, Waikiki subsidizes facilities all over the state. And that's where I draw the line. It's time to pull that back, and if we know that money stays in here, I think a lot of these folks would be agreeable to some type of development, but knowing that the finances are not going to go into general fund and state coffers. Thanks.
Okay. Kenny, I'll take one last question from you, and then we are out of time on this presentation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because I'm new in this environment, okay? And the presentation you showed was all these things I would like to see. And it didn't occur to me until you got challenged about these other things is nothing you mentioned there generates an income. So, and now they're talking about, so what I don't understand, is there an income base? Is that to make money? And how do they make money?
So we're not there yet. And like I said, the conceptual diagrams that we put together are not going to have sort of that financial analysis that needs to be done to determine whether revenue generated would even make it certain things a viable option. But what our intent in the conceptual diagrams is to do is to be sort of a visual representation of the feedback that we're hearing. We can report back on things like the revenue from or the income generated at Ala Wai Small Boat Harbor going into the general fund. There's obviously concerns about that, but that's not necessarily something that would be reflected in a conceptual diagram. But like I said, the conceptual diagram is merely that, conceptual, and that doesn't necessarily mean that will be what happens. But we'll be back again once we have sort of those conceptual diagrams pulled together to share that back with the board.
And thank you very much for being with us tonight. There's been far more questions. Oh, Helen, I'm sorry.
Just a quick
go ahead.
one. I have been a member of the Hawaii Yacht Club for many, 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 many years. And what kind of impact are you going to have on the yacht club?
So my understanding that that's not part of the parcels that are considered here because of the long-term lease, that the yacht club has with the state. So that isn't one of the parcels that we're looking at.
Okay, and we will have you back when you have more details for us, and particularly DLNR with the funding package. But thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
With apologies to our elected officials, Mark, are you ready to give the mayor's report?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Yonamine, representing Mayor Caldwell. I'll get into my follow-up report from last month. First question is regarding, let's see, I guess it's regarding the homeless people at the bus stops and what can be done about it. Responses from HPD. Officers assigned to the Waikiki District constantly patrol and respond to complaints such as this. They take appropriate actions, issue warnings, citations, or make arrests for violations depending on the circumstances. Officers also try to get proper social or welfare intervention for these individuals when necessary. It's important to note that it's not a crime for the homeless to be at the bus stop. Persons who are homeless must be afforded the same civil rights guaranteed to all citizens. Therefore, they may remain in public places if they are not violating any laws. Next question is regarding the flotilla that took place outside of Waikiki. Response from HPD. So the Honolulu Police Department has taken the lead in coordinating multi-agency efforts to maintain order during the flotillas. There are no laws regulating this specific activity. Thus, the officers enforce related laws based on the individual's actions. The problem is complex and multi-jurisdictional, but the officers continue to work together and refine their approach to this event. Officers assigned to the Waikiki District initiated several cases involving underage drinking during the most recent flotilla. Next question is regarding crosswalk at the intersection of Lemon Road and Kapahulu Avenue. The streetlights are out, making it unsafe for pedestrians. One person already got hit by a car while crossing the street. Response from DFM, Department of Facility Maintenance, is that a temporary overhead service was installed and the streetlights are operational. Permanent repairs are expected to be completed by the end of August of this year. This next question is regarding private roads. A resident wants to see Lemon Road and Cartwright Road condemned and made part of the city.